this list in our number 10 spot we have solar superstorms. A comfortingly titled new research paper called Solar Superstorms: Planning for an Internet Apocalypse was presented at the SIGCOMM 2021 Data Communication Conference, and this paper stated that there is a 1.6 to 12% chance of a solar storm to exist, which would cause an internet blackout. The ramifications of this would be unprecedented in our digital world, and the effects would be seen globally. The paper also explained that the solar storm could be a massive one that actually turns into a solar superstorm, which was then called a black swan event. There have been severe solar storms before, with a more recent one in 1989 that caused a 9-hour blackout in northeast Canada. The reason this idea is so terrifying is because of how ill prepared we are in the event of something like this happening, and if the risk is as high as a 12% chance, it seems like it should be a thing that is at least somewhere on the list of concerns. Wow. It's nice to know that the sun, the thing that helps sustain life as we know it, is also terrifying and might be the end of us. Guess that's why you don't rely on a ball of gas in the sky.
Coming in at number 9, we have toxic pollution. So I don't know whether this could totally destroy planet Earth, but toxic waste could definitely destroy its inhabitants. In most major cities, the air is thick with carcinogens that come from gasoline used in vehicles. Pollutants from farming to feed our huge populations affect wildlife and contaminate water sources. Industry pumps metals into the air, which can be detected falling in the snows of Antarctica. And this is just day to day. Of course, there are always accidents like exploding nuclear power plants. With industry constantly rising, with oil constantly being excavated and burned, how long until we choke our planet to death or poison ourselves into sickness? And it's not just on-land pollution that's a concern either. We genuinely have to worry about intergalactic contamination these days. This is coming into number 8. NASA employs full-time galaxy defenders, and keeping the Earth safe from cosmic contamination is one of their duties. In our modern age of space travel and adventure, more than ever, equipment and astronauts are setting foot in new realms. We have no idea how particles or matter from these realms would affect Earth if they were introduced. In the past, traveling from one country to another has had huge effects. For example, almost the entire wine production of Europe was halted at one point when phylloxera was introduced from North America by accident. We don't want to accidentally bring something home that disrupts the order of things, possibly to a catastrophic effect. Coming into number 7, we have the collapse of ecosystems. So when you were little, did you ever ask your parents or teachers why we couldn't just kill all the wasps or the spiders? It seemed perfectly reasonable because they're pests and you couldn't see a reason for them in life. Then of course the older and wiser person would say, well, you know, who would trap and eat the flies, and what would the birds or frogs eat? Without spiders, we would be overrun by flies and birds and frogs would suffer. Everything at the moment is linked in an ecosystem, and our existence depends on a fine balance of other existences. Despite knowing that, humans are cutting down forests left, right and centre to make more space for our growing population. Reportedly, around 30,000 species are vanishing every year because of our effect on our environment, meaning we are causing mass extinctions. Who knows when we will kill off something that we really need and what effects that will have on the food chain. Coming into number 6, we have global warming. So you can argue about the cause of it all you want, but the weather on planet Earth is fluctuating and it is more unstable than we have ever known it throughout the period of human history. We are currently breaking heat records year on end. Arctic ice is disappearing, glaciers are melting, as is mountain snow. The rise in sea levels could drown several of our cities. Some people even predict that new bodies of water could disturb currents in the Atlantic Ocean, which could paradoxically trigger an ice age. Coming into number 5, we have rogue planet collision. Uh-oh, it's a rogue planet, they've gone rogue. So these actually do sound way more fun than they are. Rogue planets are planets that don't orbit stars. Some simulations suggest that there may be more rogue planets than stars in the Milky Way at around 100,000 to 1. So really, we could be in one giant game of dodgeball. Our planet actually may have formed from a collision of planets, so it does happen. In 2012, some scientists predicted that a rogue planet could be just 100 light years away. Sure, we can blast asteroids, but how do you deal with a whole planet coming at you? Coming into number 4, we have Earth's core cooling. So right now, Earth's core is hot, 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 and to cut something really long and complicated down into a paragraph in a top 10 list, we need it to stay that way. The swirling of liquid iron and nickel in the outer outer core swirling around the solid metal of the inner core creates magnetic fields which deflect solar flares and more. If the core cools, not only would we ourselves lose heat, but we would lose our magnetosphere, which would shoot our Earth's atmosphere into space, leaving us vulnerable to all kinds of crazy solar activity. You know Mars, icy Mars. Many speculate that a cool core is what caused this planet to die out billions of years ago. There's really not much going on there now. No immediate worries though, our core isn't set to cool for tens of billions of years. One more immediate worry though is that humans are currently trying to dig a hole to the mantle of the Earth which protects the core. While I'm sure we really couldn't prod hard enough, some are not sure that poking the mantle is a good idea. I guess we'll see. Coming into number 3, I don't think this is very probable, but we have robots. Robots. Many people fear that robots will take over the world, but I'm not particularly afraid of them destroying it. Humans have yet to evolve to something beyond our current state, but when you think about it, our next stage of evolution could be computers or robots, which are often more durable than we are. In some crazy dystopian future, robots could become top of the food chain. However, they would likely know how to look after planet Earth better than we do. Coming into number 2, we have divine intervention. I personally am pretty skeptical about this one, but any good skeptic should also be skeptical of their own beliefs and acknowledge that anything could happen to change their mind at any time. For some religious people, this may seem like a distinct possibility. For the agnostic among us, we also have to admit that we do not know how the world was created, therefore there are mysteries to the universe that we do not yet understand. If God created the world and stars, could God not very well destroy them? If the world started with a big bang, could it end with one? Finally, for me, I think the most likely way that our world will end on this list is our number 1, which is egos. War comes from a clash of egos. Failing to acknowledge global warming comes from an egotistical view. Oil is money, so those with huge egos want to burn it, so long as it lines their pockets, eh? Egos are the enemy of science and prevention. Egos are the enemy of learning. A person who cannot put aside their ego to accept new information that challenges what they may have previously believed is a very dangerous person indeed. Unfortunately, the world is filled with egos, and the biggest egos tend to run countries. Only by putting these egos aside and playing for Team Planet Earth rather than Team Individual Gain will we be able to come up and face the issues that are on this list. Fundamentally, if we can't put aside our egos, the world is literally doomed.
Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have LEDA and the SWAN. In 2018, archaeologists made a cool but also kind of startling discovery as they were searching through the remains of the ancient city of Pompeii. Painted on a bedroom wall, archaeologists found a painting that depicts quite the sensual scene between the legendary Queen LEDA and, well, a swan. Of course, it was Zeus disguised as a swan, but it's still a swan, and that's super weird. Zeus in disguise is said to have fallen into LEDA's arms for protection from an eagle and then managed to seduce her, although there are some suggestions and interpretations that set a much darker scene. This discovery is unbelievable because seeing this kind of art on the wall of a bedroom of an ancient city that was destroyed by Mount Vesuvius erupting in 79 AD really makes you realize that 2,000 years is such a small amount of time in the history of Earth, and although we've progressed immensely, we're still the same humans. We just have slightly better taste in art. I honestly wish I could forget about this one.
In our 9th spot, we have the MOUSETRAP pistol. And if you guys are liking this video so far, then make sure to give it a big thumbs up. You guys already know the drill. So this was an invention that seemed like a good idea at the time, but in the end it was found faulty for a number of reasons. So in 1882, a man named James A. Williams from Texas decided to create a trap, and I quote, by which animals which burrow in the ground can be destroyed. He then took inspiration by burglar alarms from the 19th century, which was basically a pistol rigged on a contraption that would go off when someone opened a window or door. He thought that if it worked for humans, it would work for rodents too. So basically, his invention consisted of a revolver or pistol attached to basically a mousetrap. When the mouse set it off, the weapon would go off. So you see how problematic that would be? It would kill the mouse, but also take out chunks of your floor. And imagine if your foot accidentally triggered that trap. Ouch. So you can see why this invention never really took off. In our 8th spot, we have the blood-powered lamp. Okay, the award for the strangest invention goes to this one. The blood-powered lamp is exactly what it sounds like. A It's a lamp that was powered by your blood. It was also called the Dracula bulb. It was created by a man named Mike Thompson from the Netherlands, and he designed and created it not too long ago, just in 2007. You know, a time where we have electricity. So I don't know why he thought this was a good invention, but it is kind of cool, so I'll give him that. Anyways, basically, the lamp contains luminol, which is what forensic scientists use to see if there's any blood at crime scenes. Luminol reacts with the iron in blood, and as a result, it creates this bright blue glow. So this guy thought it would be a good idea to make a lamp out of luminol. Only thing is that you need to cut yourself every time that you want to use it. Basically, to use the lamp, first you mix an activating powder, then you break the ball. You cut yourself, and then you add your blood in it. As a result, the lamp will start to glow. Like I said, it's kind of cool, but also kind of really unnecessary. Coming in at number 7, we have the Pair of Anguish. This was another disgusting medieval torture device. So the Pair of Anguish, sometimes called the choke pear, was this pear-shaped metal device that you never want to be subjected to. So basically, this device was inserted into a victim's downstairs area or their mouth. Then they could turn the screw attached to this device and the pear pieces would bloom, basically expanding, and it would stretch your openings. It was often used to get information or a confession out of someone. Basically, the device will get so uncomfortable that you'll either cave in or it'll rip your skin apart. What's sick is that they didn't want to use this device to kill someone. No, they wanted it to just stretch them apart slowly to cause immense pain that lasts for hours or even days. In our 6th spot, we have the SCOLDS BRIDLE. This terrifying looking mask thing is referred to as the SCOLDS BRIDLE. The first recorded use of this device was back in 1564 Scotland. Shortly after, England started using them as well. Basically, this mask was a form of public humiliation and torture. Basically, women were forced to wear this as a form of punishment for behaving immodest or rude, or if they were accused of infidelity or witchcraft. So this mask would be locked on over their head, so they couldn't remove it. Then there was a spike mouthpiece attached to it, so they weren't allowed to speak. They then had to walk around in public wearing it. It was meant to inflict pain on the person while simultaneously causing public humiliation. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the Iron Maiden, and I'm not talking about the band here. Chances are you have heard of this disturbing invention. Basically, it was a coffin-like device that was lined with spikes. The victim was then placed in the coffin, and then the executioner would close the door. The spikes were then shot directly into the victim's body. But here's the thing. They specifically positioned the spikes so that the victim wouldn't die immediately. Instead, it would be a slow and painful death where they just slowly bled out. That is terrifying. Also, who was responsible for cleaning that device? Because that would suck. Coming in at number 4, we have the spike collar. So picture the Iron Maiden, and now picture it around your neck. That's basically what the spike collars were. A collar with spikes all on the inside. It was then placed on a victim and the spikes would dig into their necks. What's worse than the discomfort is the fact that they wouldn't be able to lay down or sleep. They also couldn't eat or drink, so they would just suffer with this thing on for days on end. For prisoners, after the collar was placed on their neck, it was then fastened with ropes to the 4 walls in the room. The prisoner would stand in the middle. If they moved even an inch in one direction, the spikes would impale them, so they would have to stand incredibly still. In our 3rd spot, we have the rack. Although this invention doesn't have a scary name, don't be deceived. It is very gruesome. This was a popular torture device from medieval Europe. Basically, the victim would have their ankles and wrists tied to this device so that they were spread open. Then 2 executioners would crank the gears and the machine would slowly pull their limbs in the opposite directions, stretching them farther and farther apart until eventually they were ripped right off. I'm telling you, people back in the day were sick. Seriously, imagine if we used this now for criminals. That would never fly. Moving on at number 2, we have the DIMPLE machine. Everyone is born with unique features. Maybe you have a butt chin, or unique birthmarks, or dimples. Now, if you don't have dimples, don't worry. There's a device that will give you some. Back in 1936, a woman named Isabella Gilbert created a device that will give people dimples. You know, if you weren't born with them and you were jealous. So basically how this works is the dimpleless person would place this contraption over their face. The device had 2 sets of knobs on either side of it that would poke into your skin. It was believed that if you were to wear this long enough, then it would train your cheeks to create dimples on their own. I'm sorry, no, that looks terrifying and also painful. And at our number 1 spot, we have the electric smile. Back in 2011 in Japan, a very weird invention was made to help children smile. It's crazy. So basically, it forces kids to smile by sending electric shocks to the kids' cheeks. This causes the face muscles to contract and voila, you got a smile. This is wrong on so many levels, but it was targeted towards parents as a method to snap their kids out of a tantrum or to make sure they are looking perfect out in public. Here's the creepy part. The shock is so strong that the smile can last for days. And a side effect is that it can cause some twitching. Like I said before, this invention is just so wrong on so many levels. I can't believe it's a real thing.
Starting off this countdown, we have Project Mercury and Volcano. This experiment makes you wonder, what on earth were they thinking? So from 1987 to 1992, the Russian military were running experiments for a tectonic weapon. Basically, the experiments would involve detonating nuclear weapons underground so that they would disturb the Earth's tectonic plates and electromagnetic fields, which they hoped would cause earthquakes and volcanoes. I don't know about you, but messing with the tectonic plates could have ended very badly. In the end, they only ran 4 experiments before it was banned. Like, dude, imagine they succeeded and created a bunch of earthquakes and messed up our electromagnetic fields. That would have been extremely disastrous.
Number 9, wandering black holes. Black holes that move? No thank you. They can stay right where they are, except for some of them can't. Scientists always suspected that black holes could travel, but they just haven't found one until March 2020, that is. Yay! Researchers at the Center of Astrophysics Harvard-Smithsonian finally found a concrete specimen. At the center of a galaxy 230 million light years away is a wandering black hole. It has a mass of 3 million times that of our sun, and it is moving at 110,000 miles per hour. Black holes, due to their sheer mass, are usually just too heavy to get any kind of traction. Imagine kicking a bowling ball versus a soccer ball. Bowling ball is the black hole. But scientists think that it may have gotten its start due to a collision, therefore meaning that it could be part of a pair. So where's the other one? Could it be heading straight for us, ready to suck future generations into oblivion? I guess we will never find out, but they will, so good luck guys. Number 8, satellite demolition derby. I feel like we practically just started going to space. It's only been since the 60s, like 6 decades, like that's insane. Which is why this number blows my mind. In space right now, orbiting our planet are tens of thousands of pieces of space junk, even millions. There are 2,000 active satellites and 3,000 dead ones just like chilling up there. Now that may not sound like too much of a problem, but it really could be. If they started hitting each other, the results would be disastrous. NASA scientist Donald Kessler in the 1970s proposed that if there was too much space junk in orbit, that a chain reaction could occur. As the junk collides with each other, it could cause even more space junk, making Earth's orbit entirely unusable. As you can gather, this would potentially be catastrophic. For companies like SpaceX, who plan on launching 50,000 satellites for global internet coverage, more obstacle avoidance procedures need to be put in place before that happens. Otherwise, I don't know, I don't want to think about it. It could get really bad. Number 7, aliens. The wonderful late Stephen Hawking proposed that aliens could be dangerous for us to interact with. If you haven't seen Into the Universe with Stephen Hawking, you should, it's great. I love it, I put it on in the background all the time. He states that not only do intelligent life forms definitely exist, just probability wise, he does warn that interacting with them could be really dangerous. Quote, "We only have to look at ourselves to see how intelligent life might develop into something we wouldn't want to meet," unquote. First and foremost, if they actually made it here, then they have technology far beyond our understanding yet. That kind of technology would be pretty intimidating, and consider how well we humans have dealt with meeting new people in the past. Answer, not good. But who's to say these intelligent aliens might not also be looking to colonize and conquer? We could be to them what the Mayans were to Cortez. If it's the other way around and we end up seeking them out first, who's to say history wouldn't repeat itself? You know, especially if we're looking for a new place to live. Ugh. Number 6. Wandering stars. The entire universe is continuing to expand, so that means that everything is constantly moving and could eventually tear apart. But anyways, even our sun is moving. But in relation to us, it isn't moving. However, there are stars that do. They are called wandering stars, and there is one in the Milky Way. What makes this one so dangerous is that it could get so close to our sun that it disturbs the OORT cloud. This cloud at the edge of the solar system is composed of comets, which would come hurtling at us if something were to hit it. Therefore, not a pleasant thing to think about. As we will discuss later, asteroids will not be kind to Earth. Now imagine thousands all at once. Currently though, we are in a region of less dense interstellar gas. Additionally, the wind and solar magnetic field protect us from interacting with the stellar medium. We will probably move out of this in the next 20,000 to 50,000 years, meaning more dangers will come our way. So basically, our sun protects us until something messes with that. Hence, wandering stars are the worst. I won't be around to see that, hopefully not anyways, and you won't me either, but somebody will be, and I hope they don't get to see it either. Number 5. Supernova. What is a supernova? Well, it's essentially when a star of immense size explodes. Is this potentially deadly? Absolutely. Our sun is expected to die eventually, but probably not for, a billion years as previously mentioned. But what will happen when it does? Well, the entire Earth would burn up essentially as previously mentioned. It would be 15 times hotter than the surface of the sun, but that's not going to happen for a while yet. However, if a supernova occurred some 30 light years away, this could have detrimental effects on Earth now. Possibly mass extinctions, destruction of the ozone layer, therefore leaving Earth vulnerable to solar rays, which would kill us all. The oxygen and nitrogen in the atmosphere could also ionize, meaning our atmosphere would turn into a kind of thick smog. Not a good time, and doesn't sound very good. I don't want to be there. Number 4. Gamma ray bursts. Okay, so we just talked about how scary supernovas are. Well, get ready for gamma rays. It's a death ray from space. They are the most extreme explosions in the universe, like a supernova. It's crazy enough to think that our sun could explode within seconds, not anytime soon, but imagine a star several times the mass of ours collapsing into a black hole. This could turn into a gamma ray burst. Essentially, twin beams blast out light so bright that we can see them from Earth, even if they are billions of light years away. So it's like a black hole's in the center and 2 lasers. If you think that's crazy, check out this fact. A gamma ray burst can release more energy than the sun will emit in its entire lifetime. What does that mean? It means death for any planet, asteroid, or spaceman in its way. It's literally like the universe made a lightsaber. Some scientists think that these gamma rays are one of the reasons for the mass extinctions on Earth. Let's hope that's not the case in future. Number 3. Solar flares. Okay, so even if you're someone who condemns cell phones and says that the internet is killing our brains, yada yada yada, much of your life still depends on technology. Many people worry that a killer solar flare could destroy our planet, but that's not actually possible. But what is possible is a complete and total blackout. While the heat of a flare can't make it to Earth, electromagnetic radiation and energetic particles can. They can and have messed with the upper atmosphere and disrupted signal transmissions. But that's tame compared to what else could happen. Should a coronal mass ejection, a CME, hit Earth, it's game over for Insta. I will never see you again. Bye bye YouTube. They propel electromagnetic fluctuations that could fry ground level power grids, causing a total worldwide blackout. The largest geomagnetic storm caused by this ever recorded was in 1859. Telegraph networks around the globe failed, operators were shocked, and telegraph paper caught on fire. If we have a storm anything close to that, it could be catastrophic. Number 2. An asteroid, of course. Ever seen Deep Impact or Armageddon? I have seen both, each only once because they terrified me so much. All throughout our galaxy, throughout the universe, there are wandering massive rocks drifting through space. Some are as large as whole provinces, even countries. At this moment there are currently 20,000 asteroids in our galaxy that could pose a threat. Now I assume that scientists actually have a plan for if one starts barreling for us, but it would be incredibly hard to stop regardless. The White House Office of Science and Technology Policy released a report on June 20th in 2018 that detailed the steps NASA and FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, will take to prevent asteroids from striking Earth and prepare the US for the consequences of the event. Side note, I love how Canada always dies in every disaster movie ever. Like the day after tomorrow, nobody cares about them. We're probably fine though. Anyways, that was a side note, side tangent. Anyways, the US, they are planning ways on deflecting them, as well as developing technology that better predicts the probability that ones will hit. So, maybe we won't be able to stop them, but we'll know they're coming, so I guess we can like say goodbye to our loved ones. And last but not least, interstellar clouds. Imagine one day looking up into the sky and not seeing any stars. Or very few at least. Then another night you look into your telescope and you can no longer see Jupiter. The next morning there's a murky darkness over the sky. You realize that no, this isn't a sci-fi nightmare or an episode of Doctor Who. There's no one to save us. What I'm talking about is an interstellar dust cloud that is capable of destroying the Earth. But don't worry, as terrifying as that intro was, we probably won't be alive to see it. Maybe no one will be, who knows. This event will probably happen in a few millennia, but eventually Earth will come in contact with a cloud 1,000 times denser than space. Imagine going from swimming in a pool to swimming in a pile of jello. Yeah. Dust and gas will penetrate our atmosphere and eat away the oxygen. Our planet will then be left vulnerable to solar wind that will come in and tear apart the molecules of life. Something I'm glad I will not be there to see.
Starting off this countdown, we have the JUDAS CRADLE. Whoever invented this torture device was sick. So basically, the victim would be placed into a waist harness that attached to ropes. Then the victim would slowly be lowered onto this pyramid-shaped seat. And it's got a nasty, pointy top. That gets inserted up their yahoo. The victim was then slowly and painfully stretched open by this device. Eventually, their body would tear and they would be impaled. Doesn't that just sound peachy? This instrument was used until the late 1800s in Europe. I can't imagine how painful that must have been. So let's not bring back that form of torture. Ever.
Number 9. UFOs. Okay, back in 2017, a $22 million defense program was put in place called the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. Inhale. Yeah, it's a long title. No cool name for it yet. It's just a lot of space shit. Its purpose was to study military encounters with UFOs. Yeah, seriously. Remember when UFOs were on the news all the time and nobody seemed to give What was that all about? Well, Navy pilots were coming out with their stories. Eventually, come 2019, senators felt they need to be briefed on these sightings. They were starting to look a little too good. After a vote by the Senate Intelligence Committee in June 2020, it was agreed that UAP reports are to get added to the Intelligence Authorization Act for 2021, for now. That's why more and more footage is coming out on the daily. These incidents were filmed ages ago, but now they're being released because they're allowed to. According to the Times, these 120 incidents that were studied, it turns out the US military is not responsible for any of them. If they happen to be advanced drones sent to spy on the military, it's kind of important to find out who sent them, no? Recently, a former Navy pilot, Ryan Graves, spoke out to 60 Minutes, and he explained that these UAPs would pop up during exercises every day for at least a couple of years. Every day. It's a lot of alien dudes just popping up being like, oh, what's up? And then flying away. That's crazy. If these were tactical jets from another country that were hanging out up there, it would be a massive issue. But because it looks kind of different, we're not willing to actually look at the problem in the face. We're happy to just ignore the fact that these are out there watching us every day. That's what Ryan said. You know what? I'm with you, Graves. Let's just get to the bottom of this. Also, aliens? Probably.
In our number 8 spot today, we have the Halloween Skull asteroid. A radar image of asteroid 2015 TB145 is a perfect image to bring up this spooky season because it quite literally looks like a skull. This object was captured using the Arecibo Observatory in Puerto Rico on October 30th, 2015, and NASA says that it is likely a dead comet. To make things a little more creepy, this Halloween decoration looking asteroid flew by Earth on Halloween night in 2015, and it was a close drive-by at that. It was within 301,986 miles of our planet, which is only 1.25 times the distance between Earth and the Moon. The asteroid flew by Earth again on November 11th, 2018, but luckily it was at a more safe and comfortable distance. It still looked creepy though.
Number 7. APOPHIS. We thought the world was going to end in 2012. The Mayan calendar tipped us off, and they even made a movie about it. John Cusack got a paycheck because of the Mayan calendar. That's a fact. What a weird thing. Well, we might be seeing another disaster movie in 8 years. The asteroid Apophis is in the category of potentially hazardous asteroids, and on April 13th, 2029, it will barely miss the Earth in its passing, and around 2 billion people will be able to witness the possible end with their naked eye. How lovely. Let's all gather outside and watch how we almost bit the dust. Also, it's on a Friday the 13th, so that's pretty cool. Scientists were actually unsure about if this thing was gonna hit or not, and even to this day, Earth's gravitational pull may just influence this near miss. If an asteroid hit Earth, honestly, I'd just chill. I would just go out in a canoe and just lie down and just close my eyes. That'd be it. What a pleasant way to go, in a weird way.
In our number 6 spot today, we have the mysterious gap. This discovery is less terrifying and more just absolutely fascinating, but I had to include it because it's a really new development and I wanted to tell you about it. So basically, a new analysis by scientists at MIT of ancient meteorites found something new and super interesting. In the early solar system, there was what is referred to as a protoplanetary disk of dust and gas that rotated around the sun, and eventually it all coalesced into the planets that we know and love today. So this new study and analysis suggests that a sort of mysterious gap existed within the disk somewhere around, I don't know, 4.567 billion years ago, and it was in an area near where the asteroid belt is today. The reason this gap is mysterious is because it isn't quite clear what the cause of this gap was. There are a few possibilities, including Jupiter during the time when it began to take its shape. Because of its extremely large gravitational pull, it could have pushed gas and dust towards the outskirts, which would have then left a gap in the developing disk. There are other possibilities, but regardless of whatever caused this gap, it is said to have likely served as a cosmic boundary that kept materials on either side from interacting with each other.
Number 5. The OORT cloud. If you thought the iCloud was scary, well, buckle up, pal. Dating back to the origin of the solar system, that's always a fun rabbit hole to go down, the OORT cloud may have been formed when our star was created in a nebula. It's heavily theorized that our sun sucked in material from other stars that were forming at the same time as itself, and it's this massive solar cloud made of 2 trillion icy, massive objects. It just sits at the edge of the solar system, and rumor has it this is where long period comets originally come from. Like Halley's Comet was go and then it'll come back in like 40 years. That's where it goes. These objects in the cloud are referred to as trans-Neptunian objects. It's named after Jan Oort, who theorized it in 1950, but even before then, back in 1932, Ernst Öpik proposed the idea. Oort cloud, Öpik cloud, tomatoes, tomatoes. Y'all are brilliant. Please tell us how our world's gonna end by discovering these. You're doing great.
In our number 4 spot today, we have Bye Bye Milky Way. Okay, so this isn't necessarily to do with our solar system specifically, but it has implications for the Milky Way galaxy in which our solar system resides in, so today we're counting it. Some sort of unidentified thing that is larger than anything in our known universe is sucking portions of the Milky Way away. In 2009, researchers first found a cluster of galaxies moving at extremely fast speeds towards a small area of the sky. This area is located between the constellations of Centaurus and Vela, and whatever this whole thing is, it has been dubbed Dark Flow so that it can sit on the shelf with the other terrifying space mysteries like dark energy and dark matter.
Number 3. Uranus tilt. Ha! I said Uranus! Awesome. Get your chuckles out now, you clowns. We're talking about serious space matters. This isn't a joke. We're still trying to figure out to this day why Uranus rotates on its side, when every other planet have their axis pointing up. Uranus's tilt is 98 degrees, so there's long periods of time, I'm talking like 40 years, where the North Pole or the South Pole will just face the sun directly. Perfect planet to take up perineum sunning, I'd say. Other planets in our solar system have a prograde rotation, or they go counterclockwise depending on which way you're looking at it. But Venus has a retrograde rotation, so the theory here is that something big hit these planets. Early in their planet life, scientists believed that Uranus was hit by a massive rock, or a UFO, anything large enough to move a planet. You be the judge. You drop your ideas in the comments. We have no idea. I'm guessing Thanos.
In our number 2 spot today, we have Bye Bye Moon. Today we're saying bye to parts of our galaxy and maybe even our moon. I mean, not really, but kind of. The moon is apparently slowly, sadly moving away from Earth. When I say slowly, I mean slowly, as it's at a rate of about half an inch a year, but still, when we're talking about our cosmic best buddy, half an inch seems like a lot. The moon isn't only the thing that lights up our night sky, the moon plays a vital role to our lives here on Earth due to its companionship and gravitational pull. The moon's gravity is what causes the tides of our ocean, so without our moon, who knows what would happen to our marine ecosystems. The moon is also responsible for the axial tilt of the Earth and how it stays in relatively the same place. Without the moon, we either wouldn't have any tilt at all, or we would be tilted all the way. This would mean that we either would have no seasons, or some of the most extreme seasons any of us have ever seen. While it doesn't appear the moon is going anywhere soon, sometimes we just have to keep an eye on her to make sure.
And finally, number 1, Oumuamua. Unidentified aerial phenomena doesn't always have to be a flying saucer or an alien per se, although it's pretty fun to think about. But look at Oumuamua for example. Oumuamua was this mysterious object that flew into our solar system years ago. It was first discovered in October 2017, and it was the first ever interstellar asteroid detected by humans. Pretty big deal. Comets' technical names begin with the letter C, and asteroids the letter A, but with Oumuamua's discovery they have made an entirely new classification letter, I for interstellar. Oumuamua translates to a messenger from afar arriving first, and scientists are leaning towards this object being a UAP or some type of future alien technology. As crazy as it sounds, listen to this. Oumuamua was thin and long. They referenced it to a cigar, and it shot across the cosmos like a comet, only it didn't have a tail. So the first thought was, okay, maybe it's hydrogen blasting off of the object and that's what's causing it to whip into our solar system at high speeds. But the tricky thing is, Oumuamua changed its mind on its destination. Apparently, the object, measuring at about 2,500 feet long by the way, came into our solar system, and instead of orbiting around the sun again, and then like everything else just dipping, Oumuamua just turned instantly and left the solar system, as if it hit something and then bounced off of it. The Spitzer Space Telescope didn't detect much heat coming from the object as well, and based on its size and the trajectory of the sun, the object has to be extremely shiny, and they're predicting it has a reflectance that's 10 times higher than previously studied solar system asteroids. Could this thing be an interstellar visitor? Well, more signs point to yes because of its odd rotation. It rotates every 8 hours, so if it was an interstellar comet, the tail propelling it at those insane speeds wouldn't let it spin like that. It would just go. So what do you guys think of Oumuamua? Alien ship or long lost part of the Oort cloud? Comment down below.
Number 10. In Doctor Who, Season 1, the Doctor takes Rose Tyler to see the destruction of the Earth in 5 billion years. However, researchers working with NASA think that the world will actually end in 1 billion years, so 4 billion years less. This will be due to our ever-expanding sun, which will burn off all of the oxygen on our planet, essentially turning into a little fireball before it's consumed. The sun will most likely expand into a red dwarf and literally eat us. Hopefully by then we will have expanded into the universe and inhabited other planets, and you know, like Firefly. It would be awesome if that was real. However, we might destroy ourselves before the sun even has a chance to. So although it is inevitable that the sun will eat us for lunch, what we are doing now might beat it to the punch if we don't do something about it.
In our number 9 spot today we have the CLOUDBUSTER. Okay, this one is kind of pseudo-scientific, but it could have serious implications and is much better left as far in the past as possible. In the 1950s, a man named William Reich created a device called the CLOUDBUSTER that could manipulate certain kinds of energy that would end up affecting the atmosphere, and this would then change the weather patterns. It is said that the machine could affect a type of energy called orgone energy, and it is said that there was actually a successful demonstration of this machine way back in the 50s. Apparently people have tried to recreate it but have been unsuccessful, and it's actually to the detriment of them and the area surrounding them. Honestly, we spend a lot of time messing with this planet. It makes me a little nervous, I'm not gonna lie. In our number 8 spot today we have the zombie virus. I know The Walking Dead is a popular series, but none of us dream of living in that world. At least I hope not. What a literal nightmare. That is why in 2007, when the UK discovered that many of their caterpillars were falling victim to what became known as zombie virus, we all said we've had enough, especially now that we've all gone through a pandemic. That kind of energy needs to be as far away from me as possible. The caterpillars were being infected with baculovirus, which stops their molting and encourages them to continue eating. eating. Once they've eaten a bunch and they're full to the brim, the virus then tells them to head high onto a leaf. Which, like, if we weren't talking about a virus that's killing them, that would have been the cutest little sentence. High on a little leaf? Anyway, it's not cute and it's sad. Basically, once they're on this leaf, if a bird doesn't snatch them up, warning, this is kinda gross, their body liquefies and explodes, and then the virus is spread onto other caterpillars below. Yeah, see? Let's all move on and forget it ever happened. The caterpillars are good, everyone's fine. In our number 7 spot today, we have Y2K. If you're 15 years old watching this video, listen up. Computers have been here for your whole life, but they really aren't that old. You're 15 and they're barely older than you. So when the year 2000 rolled around, everyone started freaking out because we didn't know if the computers knew about the year 2000. Basically, many computer programs at the time only accepted 2 digits for the year, like 99 instead of 1999, so everyone was freaked out that the computers would be unable to operate once the clock rolled over to 2000, because what if they think it's 1900 instead? People were worried that planes were gonna fall out of the sky, they thought that the system would reboot, think it's 1900 again, and be like, dang, we're supposed to be made out of wood. The pilot turns into the Wright brothers. Okay, but seriously, we're expecting the year change to bring down computer infrastructures like those for banking and power plants, but in the end, millions and millions of dollars were spent to create software and workarounds for this situation, and we entered a new millennia. Let's not even start talking about 2012. In our number 6 spot today, we have teeth. Okay, people keep finding teeth. And like a lot of them. On 2 separate occasions, construction workers found more than 1,000 human teeth in one spot, and these 2 separate occasions happened in entirely different parts of the world. Workers in an Australian metro tunnel found a huge supply of human teeth that were over a century old, and with it they found some precious stones and cool artifacts, which made the whole teeth thing less worse, but I'm still undecided on whether or not it's worth it. Then, literally 2 months later, a team of construction workers in Georgia found another bunch of human teeth in the wall of a commercial building. My first thought is serial killer, but luckily this one isn't as grim. Documents showed that both of these places used to be the sites of dental offices, and the fact that these discoveries happened so close to one another was simply just a weird coincidence. In our number 5 spot today, we have starlight. This is an insane substance that was created in the 1970s and 80s by a hairstylist and amateur chemist, Maurice Ward. Amateur chemist is like the funniest term in the world to me. Like, so was Walter White. Anyway, Maurice was able to create starlight, which was like a heat-resistant plastic that was virtually indestructible. It could withstand temperatures of up to 10,000 degrees Celsius, and it could withstand the force of 75 times that of an atomic bomb. Of course, people were begging Maurice for the recipe for this substance, and places like NASA were dying to get their hands on it. Well, Maurice was not about to let his superpower get out into the world because he feared what would happen if the recipe for it fell into the wrong hands. Seems like Maurice read a comic book or 2. Watch out, Tom Holland, Maurice is coming for your job. Maurice took the secret of how to make starlight with him to the grave and never told a soul how he managed to make it. It appears it may have been able to be recreated, however, or at least something similar, in the last few years by a company called ThermoShield. Maybe this will be a good thing, and maybe it's the beginning of the end. Can't wait till we find out. Hope they at least film it in IMAX. In our number 4 spot today, we have Agent Orange. Okay, we've been having a silly fun time on this list today, but not everything can be silly and fun and sunshine and rainbows, and sometimes we have to talk about real life. Agent Orange is not Cody Banks' cousin, but it was an extremely potent herbicide that was used from 1961 to 1971 in the Vietnam War. It was intended to cut through the canopy of thick foliage in Vietnam in order to reveal the troops underneath, but instead it proved to be extremely deadly to humans. It caused cancers, birth defects, and so many more different health issues. And it's not like it was just a little bit. 21 million gallons of it were sprayed over Vietnam, which affected hundreds of thousands of Vietnamese citizens, and it also affected the US veterans who were exposed to it as well. While this is a dark part of history and it is difficult to hear about, it is also important that we don't forget things like these. Knowing our history is very important so we don't make the same mistakes again. In our number 3 spot today, we have the Mars Climate Orbiter. Listen guys, we all make mistakes. Sometimes when you hear about other people's mistakes, it makes you feel better about your own because at least I don't work for NASA, so when I make a mistake I just have to read comments about it. No one is mad at me for wasting millions of dollars, just precious minutes of your life. The Mars Climate Orbiter was a robotic space probe that was launched by NASA in 1998 in order to study the Martian climate and then the Martian atmosphere. Unfortunately, in 1999 all communication with the spacecraft was lost because it ended up on a trajectory that flew it too close to the planet. Its fate either left it destroyed in the atmosphere or it escaped the planet's vicinity and ended up orbiting around the sun. Once an investigation into how this happened occurred, it was discovered that it was due to mismatched measurements between the two software systems, as NASA was using SI units while Martin Lockheed, who created one piece of ground software, used United States customary units. Yeah, I feel way less bad that I was 15 minutes late this morning. Sorry boss, I'm running on UK time right now. I guess I'm actually a couple hours early. In our number 2 spot today we have Osmosis Jones 2, Return of the Jones. Here's the thing, antibiotics are super important for us and our health and are one of the most important advancements of modern medicine, but because people use them improperly, bacteria that is resistant to the medicine we have is being created, and that is a big problem. We wish we could forget it, but we can't because it's a threat to us all. Have you ever had strep throat before and they're giving you antibiotics to treat it and they tell you to make sure you take all of them even if you feel better? Yeah, there's a reason. You gotta make sure that the thing is dead and gone before you stop taking those things, or else they can learn how to fight back against basically our only line of defense. The rise of these resistant bacteria would place us in a very dark time. We're not just talking about more infections, we're talking about a collapse of healthcare. We can't do surgeries, people can't get treatment, and it's awful. 0 out of 10 would not recommend. In our number 1 spot today we have the nothingness. You ever just sit back and think about how we're literally just floating through vast nothingness? Here on Earth, at least we have some kind of a sense of stability. Like, we're connected to the Earth through gravity, we have our cozy home in our solar system, we've got an orbit going around the sun, we've got a pet we call the moon. Things feel like home here. But when we think about it, the universe is impossibly large. Perhaps infinitely large, and we're just like smaller than a speck of dust within it. Every point in the universe is expanding away from every other point. There's no axis, there's no center, it's just endless space? I don't know. I get it, but I don't. It seems impossible, but it's just reality. I'm stressed, you're stressed, but we don't matter. What could possibly matter when there's just so much but absolutely nothing? Anyway, I'm gonna go stress about learning Excel now.
Coming in at number 10, we have gamma ray bursts. Gamma ray bursts are way more worrying than solar flares. They're one of the brightest and most powerful events in the universe and have the ability to destroy anything in their path. They have been observed in distant galaxies, but not yet in our own. Gamma ray bursts come from the collapse of stars, usually during a supernova or a hypernova. It has been predicted that a gamma ray burst in the Milky Way, our galaxy, would cause mass extinction, if not total obliteration of the Earth. Cheery!
Coming in at number 9, we have weaponizing the plague. In 14th century Europe, the plague took the lives of up to 60% of the population. And the government was all like, let's use these victims for biological attacks. It started with gathering the deceased and flinging the infected corpses or their feces over castle walls using a catapult. From there, the military was making plans to load warheads with the bubonic plague, which would then be time released. Honestly, any form of biological warfare is a really bad idea. Seeing how fast the current pandemic spread, imagine people fighting with bacteria and germs. That would spread hella fast and kill millions. In our 8th spot, we have dimethyl mercury. Dimethyl mercury is a very dangerous and toxic chemical compound. So it's quite concerning when people start to experiment with it. Take the case with chemist Karen Wetterhahn, for example. In the late 90s, Karen was studying the effects that dimethyl mercury had on living organisms. While running some tests, she dropped a bit of the chemical onto her glove. What she didn't know is that it can easily permeate through latex gloves within 15 seconds. And even a small drop is enough to cause mercury poisoning. Sadly, that's what happened, and she ended up slipping into a coma before passing away 10 months later. Although Karen's experiments weren't going to affect the world, any experiments with this compound should be feared. It could kill or sicken people within seconds. In our 7th spot, we have the Large Hadron Super Collider. With a name like that, it just sounds intimidating, like Super Collider. So this was the largest particle collider in the world. It was built between 1998 to 2008 and took 10,000 scientists and engineers from over 100 countries to build. It ended up costing more than $9 billion to make. Now you might be wondering, what does this massive machine do? Well, it, and I quote, allows the protons to produce the microscopic size of the black hole, but they evaporate because of their small size. Scientists were actually scared of the creation of this thing. They thought that this experiment could end the world. Like some thought it would create a big black hole that would just take in the Earth. Thankfully, it hasn't happened. yet, but it has been blamed for causing earthquakes and pulling asteroids towards Earth. In our 6th spot we have Kola Super Deep Borehole. In 1970 the Soviets started drilling a hole into the crust of the Earth. They wanted to drill as deep as they possibly could. By 1994 they had made a hole 12 kilometers deep in the Kola Peninsula. But at that point, they had to stop. They couldn't go any further because it was getting extremely hot. Down there, it was 356 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 180 degrees Celsius. Now, this experiment brought up a lot of controversy. People were freaking out thinking that the hole was going to release demons from the center of the Earth. Others feared that it would create earthquakes or stir up other natural disasters. Like seriously, we've never dug deep into our Earth's crust, so we don't know what could happen. Thankfully, the whole site has been closed. Now let's just focus on energy on productive things, okay? No more drilling. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the Trinity test. In July of 1945, America detonated its very first nuclear device. This was given the name the Trinity test. This all happened during World War II when countries were madly rushing to gain military advantage. The Manhattan Project, which was a code name, oversaw the development of the atomic weapons during this time. The first test was on July 16th. They detonated the weapon in a New Mexico desert. Apparently the bomb exploded with power equivalent to around 21,000 tons of TNT. Hell, that could have gone extremely wrong. And there were a bunch of concerned individuals who were scared that the explosion would cause the end of the world or destroy all of New Mexico. Thankfully, that wasn't the case. Coming in at number 4, we have the infected mosquitoes. During the Cold War, the US military was testing biological warfare. In 1957, they used citizens in Georgia, Savannah, and Avon Park in Florida as their test subjects. Basically, they would infect mosquitoes with diseases and then release them to see how they would infect the citizens. Well, within a day the mosquitoes had spread a distance of between 1 and 2 miles and had bitten hundreds of people. In the end, thousands suffered from yellow fever, typhoid, encephalitis, and respiratory problems. Even a number of women were giving birth to stillborn babies. These were all blamed on the mosquitoes. There even was a number of deaths during this experiment. In our 3rd spot we have Unit 731. Unit 731 was a biological warfare unit during the Second Sino-Japanese War. Well, in 1936 a man named Shiro Ishii built a huge compound where he would perform a number of disturbing experiments, including cutting pregnant women open to study them. And they got pregnant in the first place by one of Ishii's men. Another experiment consisted of having someone's limbs amputated and then reattaching them to other parts of their bodies. Others had parts of their bodies frozen and then thawed so that he could study what would happen if you didn't treat gangrene. Trust me, it gets worse. Other prisoners were his test subjects for grenades and flamethrowers, or he would inject others with diseases to study their effects. He even would test diseases on people to see how they would be used for biological warfare. That one posed the most risk to all of humanity had he actually created biological weapons. The list of experiments run on people there goes on and on though, it's very disturbing. In our 2nd spot we have the biological weapons attack. Back in the 1950s, the military sent a number of planes to spray bacteria and chemical powders all across the US and parts of Canada. Citizens saw that a bunch of low-flying planes were spraying something, so they began to worry. So the government lied and was like, oh, we're just testing ways to mask the cities in order to protect you, you know, in case of attack. Lies. Now, one of the chemicals they used was zinc cadmium sulfide. It is highly toxic and can cause cancer. In 2012, sociology professor Lisa Martino-Taylor claimed that there was a spike in cancer rates that could be connected back to the chemicals, which she alleges were radioactive. And in our number 1 spot today we have New Zealand tsunami bomb. Between 1944 to 1945, New Zealand was experimenting with the use of bombs to create artificial tsunamis. Right off the bat, sounds like a terrible idea. So they experimented with placing bombs so that when they went off, the explosive energy would affect the water and cause tsunamis or tidal waves. They called it Project SEAL. It was a highly secretive operation that they hoped would destroy enemy coastal defenses and even cities. They actually did almost 4,000 test explosions before ceasing the experiment. Which is good, because had they succeeded and it became mainstream, imagine how deadly that would have been.